A janitor just exposed a multi-million-dollar conspiracy, and the CEO who mocked him has no idea she's about to lose everything unless she begs him to come back. This is the story of Adrian Cole, the man nobody saw coming, and the woman who almost destroyed herself before she learned to see what really matters. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels across the world. Adrian Cole had stopped believing in moments that changed lives. At 32, his world had narrowed to a rhythm so predictable it barely registered anymore. Wake up at 4 p.m., make dinner for his daughter Emma, help with homework, tuck her in by 9, then drive across town to the Quantum Tower for the night shift. 6 days a week, 51 weeks a year. The 1 week off went to Emma's birthday and maybe a trip to the coast if he'd saved enough. He didn't complain. Complaining required an audience, and Adrian had learned a long time ago that nobody really listens to the guy pushing a mop cart. Tonight was a Tuesday, which meant the 15th floor, executive suites, glass-walled conference rooms, that distinct smell of leather chairs and overpriced coffee. Adrian liked the 15th floor because it was usually empty by the time he arrived. Executives didn't work nights. They had homes to go to, families who expected them at dinner, personal trainers at 6 a.m. He rolled his cart past the reception desk, nodding at his own reflection in the dark windows. The city glittered below, all those lit-up buildings full of people doing important things, making decisions that mattered. Adrian had been one of those people once. Different life, different name, almost. He pulled out his headphones, then reconsidered. Sometimes the silence was better. Let him think. Let him remember what he was working for. Emma's face flashed through his mind. The way she'd looked at him this morning over breakfast, asking if he'd remembered to sign her permission slip. He had. He always did. Being present was the only thing he had left to offer her, and he'd be damned if he was going to fail at that too. The vacuum's hum filled the empty corridor as he worked his way down the hall. Conference room A, conference room B, executive lounge. The routine was meditative almost. Push forward, pull back, overlap the lines so you didn't miss a spot. Simple work. Honest work. The kind that let his mind rest. He was halfway through the main boardroom when he heard voices. Adrian paused, hand still on the vacuum handle. It was nearly midnight. The floor should have been deserted. The voices were coming from the corner office, the one with Lena Hart, CEO, etched into a frosted glass door. He could see shapes moving inside, shadows cutting across the light spilling into the hallway. He should have kept working, should have turned the vacuum back on and minded his business. But one of the voices was rising, sharp and cutting, and something in the tone made him stop. He'd heard that kind of anger before. The kind that came right before someone made a decision they couldn't take back. I don't care if you've been here since day one, Marcus. I don't care if you wrote half the original code. If you can't tell me why the hell our entire security infrastructure is failing right now, then you're useless to me. Adrian moved closer, staying in the shadows. Through the glass, he could see her. Mid-30s, dark hair pulled back so tight it looked painful, wearing a blazer that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Lena Hart. He'd seen her photo in the lobby, the press releases mounted on the wall. Local success story. Youngest female CEO in the tech sector, built her startup from nothing. Forbes 30, under 30, all that. Right now she looked about 2 minutes from putting her fist through the glass table she was leaning on. The patch didn't work, a man's voice said, strained. Marcus, probably. Mid-40s, graying at the temples, the kind of voice that had spent years being reasonable in rooms full of unreasonable people. We implemented it exactly like you wanted, but the system's still rejecting authentication requests. We're locked out of our own. Then unlock it, Lena snapped. We launch in 6 hours. 6. Do you understand what happens if we go live with a broken product? Do you have any idea how many investors are watching this? We're trying, but the recursion, I don't want to hear but. I want solutions. Lena, if you just listen for a second. No, you listen. I've put everything into this company. Everything. I've worked 18-hour days for 3 years straight. I've mortgaged my entire life to make this happen. And you're telling me that on the night before our biggest launch, you can't do the one thing I need you to do? There was a pause, and when Marcus spoke again, his voice was quieter, defeated. We're doing our best. Your best isn't good enough. Adrian winced. He'd been on the receiving end of that kind of dismissal before. It didn't matter how hard you worked, how many hours you put in. When someone decided you weren't enough, nothing you said would change their mind. He looked down at the vacuum, at his watch, at the cleaning cart with the yellow maintenance sign zip-tied to the handle. Not your problem, he told himself. But the voice in that office was getting louder, more desperate, and he could hear at least 3 other people trying to talk over each other now. Someone was panicking. The whole room was about to implode. Adrian had spent 4 years staying invisible. 4 years keeping his head down, doing his job, going home. 4 years making sure nobody looked at him too closely. Because if they did, they might start asking questions he didn't want to answer. But he'd also spent enough time on this floor to know the layout, and he'd vacuumed around enough desks to have seen things, noticed things. The server room was 2 doors down from Hart's office, and last week one of the maintenance guys had mentioned they were upgrading the biometric locks. New scanners, new panels, real cutting-edge stuff, supposedly. The kind of thing executives love to throw money at without understanding how it actually worked. And if Adrian remembered correctly, which he always did, biometric systems had a nasty habit of creating authentication loops when you rushed the integration, especially if someone forgot to update the legacy access protocols. He'd seen it happen before. Different company, different life. But the mistakes people made with technology were depressingly consistent. Adrian exhaled slowly, then clicked off the vacuum. The sudden silence felt heavy. He stood there for a moment, hand on the handle, weighing his options. Walk away, finish his shift, go home to Emma. Safe. Simple. Invisible. Or knock on that door and risk everything he'd worked so hard to leave behind. The voices in the office were getting more frantic now. Someone was close to tears. Someone else was shouting about calling the whole launch off. Adrian thought about Emma, about the permission slip, about the career day thing next week where she wanted him to show up, even though she'd tried to pretend she didn't care. He thought about the 3,000 people who worked in this building, the ones who showed up every day, put in their hours, trusted that the people at the top knew what they were doing. He thought about the version of himself that used to solve problems like this for a living, the one who'd been good at it, too good maybe. Adrian walked to the door and knocked. Everything inside the office stopped. A second later, the door swung open, and Lena Hart stood there, eyes blazing. Up close, she was taller than he'd expected, maybe 5'9" in the heels she was wearing, and the anger radiating off her was almost physical. But underneath it, he could see the exhaustion, the fear, the kind of bone-deep terror that came from knowing you were about to watch everything you'd built collapse in real time. "We're in the middle of something," she said, voice cold and clipped. "If you need to clean, come back later." "I'm not here to clean," Adrian said. Her eyebrow arched. "Then why are you here?" "I think I know what's wrong with your system." For a second, she just stared at him. Then she laughed, short, humorless, the kind of laugh that said she'd reached the point where nothing surprised her anymore. "You're joking." "No." "You're a janitor." "Maintenance worker," Adrian corrected. "And yeah, I am. But I also know what happens when you retrofit biometric authentication onto a legacy server without updating the protocol handshake." Lena's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her posture. Behind her, the others had gone silent. Adrian could see them now. Marcus, the one she'd been tearing into, standing by a laptop with his hands shaking slightly. A younger guy with a beard and a quantum dynamics hoodie, looking like he hadn't slept in a week. A woman with short red hair and glasses, arms crossed, studying Adrian with open suspicion. "Who the hell are you?" Lena asked. "Adrian Cole. I work nights. And unless you loop the access credentials through a manual override and resync the timestamp validation, your system's going to keep rejecting requests until it locks you out permanently." Marcus stepped forward, and Adrian could see the hope flickering in his eyes. The desperate, drowning hope of someone who'd been told they were useless and was now being offered a lifeline. That's actually not a bad theory. If the biometric data is time-stamped and the legacy system doesn't recognize the new format, it would create a recursion loop, the red-haired woman finished. Every login attempt would trigger a validation check that can't complete. "Exactly," Adrian said. Lena's jaw tightened. She looked at Adrian, then at Marcus, then back at Adrian. He could see her doing the math, weighing the options. Pride versus pragmatism. Control versus desperation. "You're telling me," she said slowly, each word carefully measured, "that you, Someone who mops floors for a living just diagnosed a problem my entire engineering team couldn't solve? Adrian shrugged. I'm telling you what the problem probably is. Whether you fix it or not is up to you. Her eyes narrowed. If you're wrong, then you've lost 5 minutes, Adrian said. If I'm right, you've got a shot at saving your launch. Lena stared at him for a long, tense moment. Adrian held her gaze, refusing to look away. He'd learned a long time ago that the moment you showed weakness, people stopped listening. Finally, she stepped aside. Fine, get in here. Adrian walked into the office, and the door clicked shut behind him. The room smelled like cold coffee and stress sweat. 5 people clustered around a massive monitor mounted on the wall, lines of error code scrolling past in angry red text. The desk was covered in empty energy drink cans, scattered papers, someone's half-eaten sandwich still in the wrapper. This wasn't just a late night. This was a crisis that had been building for hours, maybe days. Marcus was already at a laptop, fingers flying across the keys. Walk me through it, he said, not bothering to wait for Lena's permission. What are we looking for? Adrian moved to the screen, scanning the output. It had been a while since he'd done this, really done this, but the logic was still there, buried under 4 years of vacuum rotes and grocery lists and parent-teacher conferences. His brain clicked into gear like a machine that had been waiting to be turned back on. Your authentication loop is stuck in recursion, he said, pointing to a block of code. Every time someone tries to log in, the system checks the new biometric data against the old credentials, realizes there's a timestamp mismatch, and kicks them out. But because the error isn't logging properly, it just tries again, over and over. Why isn't it logging? The bearded guy asked. Because whoever configured the new biometric system didn't integrate it with the legacy error handling. The system knows something's wrong, but it doesn't know how to report it. Marcus was nodding now, pulling up another window. So the error messages are getting caught in a buffer overflow. And the system's treating each failed attempt as a new request, Adrian finished, which triggers another validation check, which fails, which triggers another request. It's an infinite loop. So how do we stop it? Lena asked. She'd moved closer, standing just behind Adrian's shoulder. He could feel the tension radiating off her. Manual override on the root access, Adrian said. Force the system to accept a single admin credential without timestamp validation, then push a universal resync once you're in. After that, you can patch the integration properly. That might actually work, the red-haired woman said slowly. If we can get root access, we can't, Marcus said, frustration creeping back into his voice. That's the whole problem. We're locked out. Not if you backdoor through the maintenance protocol, Adrian said. Everyone turned to look at him. The what? Lena asked. Every system has a maintenance protocol, a way for administrators to access the back-end even if the front-end authentication fails. It's usually disabled in production, but if this was a rushed upgrade, it was, Marcus said quietly. Then there's a chance it's still active. The bearded guy was already typing. Where would it be? Check the system configuration files. Look for anything labeled admin recovery or emergency access. 30 seconds later, the bearded guy let out a sharp exhale. Found it. Is it active? Lena asked. Yeah, disabled by default, but the access port's still open. Adrian felt something loosen in his chest. Then you can use that to force the override. Marcus was already pulling up another terminal. I'll need to write a script to bypass the authentication check. Don't bypass it, Adrian said. Redirect it. Tell the system to validate against a temporary credential set instead of the live database. Once you're in, you can resync everything manually. How long will that take? Lena asked. 10 minutes to write the script, Marcus said, fingers already moving. Maybe another 5 to execute and verify. Do it. The room fell into focused silence. Adrian stepped back, letting the team work. He'd done his part. The rest was up to them. Lena turned to him, and for the first time since he'd walked in, her expression wasn't angry or suspicious. It was something closer to confusion. Where did you learn this? Long time ago, Adrian said. Different life. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Her mouth opened like she was about to push, but Marcus interrupted. Script's ready? He said. Running it now. Everyone turned back to the screen. Lines of code flashed past, too fast for Adrian to follow. Then the terminal went still. A login prompt appeared. The red-haired woman typed in a command. The screen flashed green. "We're in," she said, voice barely above a whisper. The room exhaled as one. Marcus pulled up the admin panel, fingers flying across the keyboard. "Forcing the resync now. This should take about 3 minutes." Lena was staring at the screen like she didn't quite believe what she was seeing. Then she turned to Adrian, and her expression had shifted into something he couldn't quite read. "You just saved our launch," she said. Adrian shrugged. "You would have figured it out eventually." "No," she said flatly. "We wouldn't have. Not in time." She paused. "How much do I owe you?" "Nothing." "I'm serious." "But so am I." Lena reached into her pocket, pulled out a business card, and held it out. Thick, expensive paper, her name in bold letters. "I want you on my team. Name your price." Adrian looked at the card and didn't take it. "I'm good," he said. Her eyes widened. "You're good?" "Yeah. I've got a job." "Pushing a mop?" "Paying my bills?" Lena let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Do you have any idea what you just did? What you're worth?" "More than you'd pay me," Adrian said quietly. Her expression hardened. "Excuse me?" Adrian glanced around the room. At Marcus, still hunched over the laptop, shoulders tight with exhaustion. At the bearded guy rubbing his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. At the red-haired woman, holding a coffee cup with a white-knuckle grip. "You spent the last 20 minutes tearing your team apart because they couldn't solve a problem fast enough," Adrian said. "You called a guy who's been with you since the beginning useless. You didn't ask what was wrong or what they needed. You just needed someone to blame." The room went very, very still. Lena's face flushed, but she didn't look away. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough." Adrian looked her in the eye. "You don't want people. You want tools. And when the tools don't work the way you expect, you throw them out and get new ones." "That's not—" "I've been a tool before," Adrian said. "I'm not interested in going back." He turned toward the door. "Wait," she said. He stopped, hand on the handle. "I'm sorry." The words came out stiff, unpracticed, like she wasn't used to saying them. "You're right. I was out of line." Adrian glanced back. She looked furious. At him? At herself? He couldn't tell. "Thank you for your help," she said. He nodded once, then left. The hallway felt quieter than before, like the building itself had been holding its breath. Adrian walked back to his cart, turned the vacuum on, and got back to work. He finished the 15th floor, moved down to 14, then 13. Emptied trash cans, wiped down desks, restocked paper towels in the bathrooms. The routine settled over him like a familiar coat, and by the time he reached the 10th floor, he'd almost convinced himself that the last hour hadn't happened. Almost. By the time he clocked out at 6 a.m., the sky was starting to lighten, pink and gold bleeding across the horizon. His back ached in that familiar way that meant he'd been on his feet too long, and his mind felt strange, too awake, too sharp, like he'd mainlined caffeine even though he'd only had water. Adrian drove home through empty streets, the city slowly waking up around him. Delivery trucks making their rounds. Early morning joggers hitting the sidewalks. The world spinning forward like it always did, oblivious to the small crisis that had just been averted 15 floors up in a glass tower. He parked in front of the duplex he rented on the east side. A narrow 2-story building with peeling paint and a landlord who fixed things eventually if you reminded him enough times. It wasn't much, but the rent was manageable, and the neighborhood was safe enough that Adrian didn't worry when Emma walked to the bus stop. He let himself in quietly, careful not to wake her. The living room was exactly as he'd left it. Emma's backpack on the couch, her shoes kicked off by the door, a half-finished glass of water on the coffee table. Evidence of a 10-year-old's life. Scattered and chaotic and perfectly normal. Adrian showered, the hot water doing nothing to ease the tension in his shoulders. He changed into a t-shirt and sweatpants, then collapsed onto the couch. Sleep pulled at him, but he set an alarm for 7:30. Emma liked when he made her breakfast before school, and he wasn't about to let a weird night shift change that. He closed his eyes. When the alarm went off, it felt like he'd been asleep for 10 minutes. Adrian dragged himself upright, every joint protesting, and padded into the kitchen. He started pulling out ingredients on autopilot. Pancakes. Emma's favorite. She appeared in the doorway a few minutes later, already dressed in jeans and a purple hoodie, backpack slung over one shoulder. 10 years old, Dark curly hair that never seemed to stay in the ponytail he tried to wrangle it into every morning, and her mother's eyes, sharp, curious, a little too wise for her age. "Morning, Bug," Adrian said, flipping a pancake. "You look tired." "I'm fine." Emma climbed onto a stool at the counter, watching him with that look she got when she was trying to figure something out. "You're always tired. Comes with the job. You should get a better job." Adrian smiled despite himself. "Yeah? You hiring?" "I'm serious, Dad. I know you are." He slid a pancake onto her plate, added a swirl of syrup the way she liked it. "But this job works. It pays the bills. And I get to be here when you need me. That's what matters." Emma poked at her pancake with a fork, not eating. "You don't have to do everything by yourself, you know." Adrian paused, spatula in hand. "I'm not by myself. I've got you." "That's not what I mean." He set the spatula down and turned to face her fully. "What's this about, Em?" She shrugged, still not meeting his eyes. "Nothing. Just Mrs. Alvarez asked if you were coming to the parent thing next week. The career day thing." "You want me to come?" "I don't care." Which meant she did. Adrian had learned to read the spaces between Emma's words, the things she didn't say out loud because she was trying to protect him from feeling like he wasn't enough. "I'll be there," Adrian said. Emma looked up, surprised. "Really? Really? What time?" 2:00, but you'll be sleeping. I'll set an alarm. I'm not missing it." She smiled, and something tight in Adrian's chest loosened a little. "Okay." They finished breakfast in comfortable silence, Emma scrolling through something on her phone while Adrian cleaned up the kitchen. Normal. Easy. The kind of morning he'd worked so hard to build for them. At 8:15, Adrian walked her to the bus stop 2 blocks away. The same route they took every day, past the corner store with the faded awning, the house with the dog that always barked, the oak tree someone had carved initials into years ago. Emma was quiet, lost in her own thoughts, and Adrian didn't push. She'd talk when she was ready. She always did. The bus pulled up right on time. Emma turned to hug him, and Adrian held on maybe a second longer than usual. "Love you, Bug," he said. "Love you too, Dad." She climbed onto the bus, and Adrian watched it pull away, same as every morning. He stood there until it turned the corner and disappeared, then walked back to the duplex. Back inside, he should have gone straight to bed. Instead, he found himself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at his phone. He pulled up a browser, typed in Lena Hart Quantum Dynamics, and hit search. The results flooded in. News articles, press releases, investor blogs, most of them glowing. Tech Wunderkind, the future of cloud infrastructure. How Lena Hart built a billion-dollar idea from her college dorm room. Adrian scrolled through photos. Hart at conferences. Hart shaking hands with politicians. Hart on stage with a microphone. Always that same fierce, unshakable confidence. In every picture, she looked like she belonged there. Like she'd been born knowing how to command a room. But there were other articles too. Buried a little deeper, past the first page of results. Quantum Dynamics faces internal turmoil after string of resignations. Former employees speak out on toxic work culture. Is Lena Hart's success built on burnout? Adrian clicked on one of them, an anonymous interview with someone who'd left the company 6 months ago. "She's brilliant," the person had said, "but she doesn't see people. She sees problems to solve or obstacles to overcome. And if you can't keep up, she doesn't have time for you." Another article quoted a different ex-employee. "I believed in the mission. We all did. But at some point you realize the mission is just her. Everything else is just fuel for the fire." Adrian closed the browser and set his phone down. Not your problem, he reminded himself for what felt like the 100th time. He went to bed, pulled the blinds to block out the daylight, and closed his eyes. Sleep didn't come easy. His mind kept circling back to that office, to the look on Lena's face when she'd realized he was right, to the way Marcus's hands had shaken while he typed. Adrian had spent 4 years convincing himself that he was better off invisible, that the safest thing he could do for Emma was stay small, stay quiet, stay out of the way. But lying there in the dark, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just stepped onto a path he couldn't step back off. He finally fell asleep around 10, and when he woke up 3 hours later, there were 2 missed calls on his phone, both from the same number, both from Lena Hart. Adrian stared at the missed calls for a long moment, then set the phone face down on the nightstand. Whatever she wanted, it could wait. He had a few hours before Emma got home, and he needed to run to the grocery store, pay the electric bill, maybe fix the leaky faucet in the bathroom if he had time. Normal life. Normal problems. His phone buzzed. A text this time. Unknown. Number. This is Lena Hart. I need to speak with you. It's urgent. Adrian deleted the message. 30 seconds later, another one came through. Unknown number, please. It's about what you fixed last night. There's something wrong. Adrian's stomach dropped. He sat up, suddenly wide awake, and called the number back. She picked up on the first ring. What's wrong? Adrian asked, skipping the pleasantries. The system's compromised, Lena said. Her voice was tight, controlled, but he could hear the edge of panic underneath. We thought you fixed the authentication loop, and you did. But this morning, our security team found something else. Something we missed. What kind of something? Traces of a backdoor exploit, buried in the authentication code. Someone tried to plant it during the chaos last night, make it look like a system failure. She paused. If you hadn't caught the recursion loop, we never would have noticed. We would have gone live with a security breach embedded in the core infrastructure. Adrian was already on his feet, pulling on jeans. Did you patch it? We tried. But whoever did this is good. Really good. They've layered the exploit into the system so deep that every time we try to remove it, we risk triggering a cascade failure. Pull the wrong thread, and the whole platform crashes. So don't pull it, isolate it. We can't. It's threaded through the authentication module, the user database, the access controls. It's everywhere. Adrian grabbed a shirt from the closet, phone tucked between his shoulder and ear. Send me the files. I'll take a look. I need you to come in. I can work remotely. No. Her voice was firm. This is too sensitive. I need you here, in person, with our security team. And I need you to sign an NDA before we go any further. Adrian stopped, shirt halfway on. Lena, I'll pay you, she said. $50,000. Up front. 1 week of work, that's it. After that, you never have to see me again. It's not about the money. Then what is it about? Adrian looked around his bedroom, the pile of laundry he hadn't folded yet, the stack of Emma's drawings on the dresser, the framed photo of the two of them from last summer, both sunburned and grinning on the beach. I have a daughter, he said. I work nights so I can be here during the day. I can't just drop everything and come work for you. Then work nights. I don't care when you're here, as long as you're here. Bring the laptop home if you need to. Just, please. The word caught him off guard. Lena Hart didn't seem like someone who said please very often. There are 3,000 employees at Quantum Dynamics, she continued. If this breach goes live, their data gets exposed, their family's data, and we've got 500,000 users signed up for the beta launch. Those people trusted us. She paused. I'm not asking you to do this for me. I'm asking you to do it for them. Adrian closed his eyes, jaw tight. He thought about walking away, thought about telling her to find someone else, to leave him alone, to let him go back to his small, safe life. But the truth was, if what she was saying was true, if people were really at risk, then walking away wasn't as simple as he wanted it to be. And some part of him, some buried part he'd tried to forget, wanted this, wanted to matter again, wanted to be good at something other than staying invisible. 1 week, he said finally. That's it. And I work after Emma's asleep. I'm not changing my schedule for this. Done. And you stop treating your people like they're disposable. I see you pull that shit again, I walk. There was a long pause. Then Lena said, Agreed. When do you need me? Tonight. I'll have everything ready by the time you get here. Adrian hung up and stood there in the middle of his bedroom, heart pounding. What the hell had he just agreed to? Emma got home from school at 3:30, dropped her backpack by the door with a thud that shook the coffee table, and found Adrian in the kitchen making grilled cheese sandwiches. You're up early, she said, climbing onto her usual stool. Couldn't sleep. Adrian flipped a sandwich, the butter sizzling in the pan. How was school? Fine. We had a pop quiz in math. How'd you do? Probably okay. I don't know. She pulled out her phone, then looked up at him. Are you okay? Adrian slid the sandwich onto a plate and set it in front of her. Why wouldn't I be? You look weird. Thanks. I'm serious. You look like you're thinking about something. She wasn't wrong. Adrian had spent the last 2 hours trying to figure out how to explain to his 10-year-old daughter that he was about to do something he'd sworn he'd never do again. Not in a way that would make sense to her. Not in a way that wouldn't worry her. "I might have to work some extra hours this week," he said finally. "Different project. But I'll still be here when you need me." Emma took a bite of her sandwich, watching him carefully. "Is it more money?" "Yeah." "Then you should do it." "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because the last time I did work like this, people died. Because I spent 2 years trying to forget who I used to be. Because every time I think I've buried that part of my life, it finds a way back." "Just complicated," Adrian said instead. Emma shrugged. "Everything's complicated when you're a grown-up." Adrian smiled despite himself. "You're not wrong." They ate together in comfortable silence, and Adrian helped her with her homework, fractions, which she hated, and then let her watch TV while he cleaned up the kitchen. Normal afternoon, normal routine, the kind of life he'd fought to build. At 8:45, he tucked her into bed, same as always. "Love you, Bug," he said, pulling the blanket up to her chin. "Love you too." She yawned, already half asleep. "Don't work too hard, okay?" "I won't." He closed her door and stood in the hallway for a moment, listening to the sounds of the house settling around him. Then he grabbed the laptop bag Lena had given him, left a note on the counter in case Emma woke up, and drove across town to Quantum Tower. The building looked different at night, all lit up against the dark sky, glass reflecting the city lights. Adrian parked in the visitor lot and took the elevator up to 15. Lena was waiting for him in the hallway outside her office, leaning against the wall with her arms crossed. She'd changed since this morning, jeans instead of the suit, a plain gray sweater, hair down around her shoulders. She looked younger like this, tired, but younger. "You came," she said. "I said I would." "I wasn't sure you meant it." Adrian didn't respond to that. He followed her into the office, where Marcus and the red-haired woman from last night were already set up at the conference table, laptops open, coffee cups scattered everywhere. "You remember Marcus," Lena said. "And this is Dr. Sarah Chen, our head of security." Sarah nodded at him. "Thanks for coming back." "Show me what you found," Adrian said. Sarah pulled up a screen full of code, highlighted sections marked in red. "This is the authentication module you helped us fix. But when we ran a full security audit this morning, we found this." She zoomed in on a block of code buried deep in the system. "It's a data siphon, small enough that our automated scans didn't catch it, but it's been running for at least 2 weeks. Adrian leaned closer, studying the code. "What's it pulling?" "User credentials, access logs, system architecture maps, basically everything you'd need to build a complete profile of our infrastructure." "Have you traced where it's sending the data?" "We tried. The connection routes through a series of proxy servers. We lost the trail somewhere in Eastern Europe." Adrian sat down at the table, pulling the laptop toward him. "Can I?" Sarah nodded. He started digging through the code, following the logic paths, tracing the data flow. The siphon was elegant, too elegant for a random attack. Whoever built this knew exactly what they were doing. "This wasn't planted during the authentication failure," Adrian said after a few minutes. "This has been here longer. The failure was just cover." "Cover for what?" Lena asked. "To distract you. They knew you'd find the recursion loop eventually, and when you did, you'd be so focused on fixing it that you wouldn't notice this." Marcus swore under his breath. "So the whole system failure was deliberate?" "Probably. They created a problem they knew would pull your attention, then slipped this in while everyone was scrambling." "But why?" Sarah asked. "If they already had the siphon in place, why risk exposing it?" Adrian pulled up another window, cross-referencing the timestamps. "Because they're not done yet. This is reconnaissance. They're mapping your system, learning how it works, finding the vulnerabilities. The real attack hasn't started." The room went quiet. Lena sat down slowly, like her legs had stopped working. "When?" "Could be tomorrow, could be next month. But they're building toward something." "Can we stop it?" "Maybe, if we can figure out what they're planning." Sarah was already typing, pulling up access logs. "We need to see every system interaction over the last 2 weeks. Every login, every file access, every—" "That's going to take days," Marcus interrupted. "Then we work fast," Lena said. Her voice had that edge again, the one Adrian had heard last night. But this time it wasn't anger, it was fear. Adrian looked around the table. At the exhaustion on their faces, the coffee-stained notepads, the laptops running hot. These people had been fighting this for hours before he even got here. "We're not going to find it by brute force," he said. "We need to think like they do." "What do you mean?" Lena asked. "They didn't just plant this randomly. They targeted you specifically, which means they know something about your company, your security, your routines, something that made you worth the effort." Adrian turned to Lena. "Who would want to take you down?" Lena laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Where do you want me to start? I've got competitors who'd love to see us fail, investors who got pushed out early and think they deserve a cut, former employees who—" She stopped. "What?" Adrian asked. "There was someone," Lena said slowly, "a VP of engineering, Richard Castellano. He left about 3 months ago, or I fired him, depends who you ask." "Why'd you fire him?" "He wanted to take the company in a different direction. Thought we should focus on enterprise contracts instead of the consumer market. We disagreed, loudly. He tried to rally the board against me, and when that didn't work, he left." "And took what with him?" Adrian asked. Lena's face went pale. "He had full system access. Everything." Sarah was already pulling up employee records. "If he still had access after he left, he shouldn't have," Marcus said. "We revoked his credentials the day he walked out." "You revoked his official credentials," Adrian said. "What about backdoors, personal accounts? Anything he could have set up before he left?" Marcus looked sick. "I don't know." "Find out." For the next 3 hours, they tore through the system logs, looking for any trace of Castellano's presence. Adrian worked quietly, methodically, following data trails that led nowhere, and then doubling back to try a different angle. Lena paced the room, making calls, pulling up old emails, trying to piece together a timeline. Around midnight, Sarah found something. "Got it," she said, voice tight. "There's a ghost account, created 2 days before Castellano left, never used until a week after he was gone. It's been accessing the system every night between 2 and 4 a.m. "What's it pulling?" Adrian asked. "Everything. Financial records, proprietary code, client lists. He's been downloading our entire operation." Lena slammed her hand on the table, hard enough to make everyone jump. "That son of a—" "Wait," Adrian said. He was staring at the screen, something clicking into place. "If he wanted to steal your data, he could have done that months ago. Why wait? Why set up a siphon that runs for weeks?" "Maybe he wanted to make sure he had everything," Marcus offered. "Or maybe he's not working alone," Adrian said. "Maybe someone hired him to do this." Lena stopped pacing. "Who?" "I don't know. But if this is corporate espionage, then the data's not the endgame. It's leverage." Sarah pulled up another window. "We need to shut down that ghost account. Now." "No," Adrian said. Everyone turned to stare at him. "If we shut it down, they'll know we found them," he continued. "And we lose any chance of figuring out what they're planning." "So what do we do?" Lena asked. Adrian thought for a moment, weighing options. "We feed them bad data. Let them think they're still pulling real information, but we control what they see. That way we can track where it's going and figure out who's on the other end." "That's risky," Sarah said. "Everything about this is risky." Lena looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Do it." They worked through the night, building a fake data stream that looked real enough to fool whoever was on the other end. Marcus handled the technical implementation while Sarah set up monitoring protocols. Adrian coordinated, making sure every piece fit together without leaving obvious traces. Lena brought coffee around 2 a.m., setting a cup down next to Adrian without a word. He looked up, surprised. "Thank you," he said. She sat down across from him, cradling her own cup. "I meant what I said earlier, about being sorry." "I know." "I don't think you do." She stared into her coffee like it might have answers. "I built this company from nothing. Absolutely nothing. I was 23, broke, living in an apartment with 4 roommates. Everyone told me I was crazy, that I'd fail, that girls like me don't build tech companies. Girls like you, poor, no connections, no family money to fall back on." She looked up at him. "So I worked harder than anyone else. I worked until I couldn't see straight. I sacrificed everything, relationships, health, sleep, and it worked. I built something real, something that mattered." "And you forgot how to stop," Adrian said quietly. "Yeah." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Somewhere along the way, I forgot that the people around me weren't just extensions of my will. They were real. They had lives, families. Things that mattered more than my company. Why are you telling me this? Because you called me out on it, and because I think you understand what it's like to lose yourself in something. Adrian didn't answer. He turned back to his screen, but he could feel her watching him. What did you do before this? Lena asked. Before maintenance work? I told you, different life. That's still not an answer. And it's still the only one you're getting. She didn't push. After a moment, she stood up, took her coffee, and went back to her desk. By 4 a.m., they had the fake data stream running. Sarah confirmed it was broadcasting exactly what they wanted, real enough to look legitimate, fake enough that it wouldn't actually compromise anything critical. Now we wait, she said. How long? Marcus asked. Could be hours, could be days. Lena looked at Adrian. You should go home. Get some sleep. So should you. I will. Eventually. Adrian packed up the laptop, hesitated, then said, You've got good people here. Marcus, Sarah, they're loyal, they care. Don't forget that. I won't. He left before she could say anything else. The drive home felt longer than usual. The streets were empty, the city's still asleep. Adrian's mind kept circling back to the code, to the ghost account, to the feeling that they were missing something obvious. He got home just as the sky was starting to lighten. Emma was still asleep. He checked on her, curled up under her blanket, one arm hanging off the bed, and then collapsed on the couch, fully clothed. His phone buzzed. A text from Lena. Lena Hart. Thank you for everything. Adrian stared at the message for a long moment, then set the phone down without responding. He closed his eyes and was asleep in seconds. When he woke up, it was past noon, and Emma was standing over him, hands on her hips. You slept on the couch, she said. Noticed that, did you? Are you sick? No, just tired. She studied him with that look again, the one that said she was trying to figure out if he was telling the truth. You're doing that extra work thing. Yeah. Is it helping people? Adrian thought about the 3,000 employees, the 500,000 users, the data streams and ghost accounts, and everything riding on getting this right. I think so, he said. Emma nodded, satisfied. Then it's okay. She went to make herself lunch, and Adrian dragged himself upright, every muscle protesting. He showered, changed, and checked his phone. 3 missed calls, all from Sarah. He called back immediately. We've got movement, she said as soon as she picked up. The ghost account just accessed the fake data stream, and we tracked where it went. Where? A server in Prague. But that's not the interesting part. The server's registered to a shell company, and when I dug into the ownership structure, I found something. What? The company's owned by a venture capital firm, Helix Partners. Adrian's blood went cold. Helix? You know them? He knew them. Helix Partners was one of the most aggressive VC firms in the country. They specialized in hostile takeovers, buying up struggling tech companies and stripping them for parts. And they'd tried to invest in quantum dynamics 2 years ago. Lena turned them down, Sarah continued, publicly, said she'd rather shut down the company than let them buy a stake. So they decided to take her down instead, Adrian said. Looks like it. And Castellano, he's on their payroll now, director of acquisitions. Does Lena know? Not yet. I wanted to confirm before I told her. Confirm it, then call me back. Adrian hung up and stood there in his kitchen, mind racing. This wasn't just corporate espionage anymore. This was a coordinated attack designed to destroy Lena's company from the inside out. And if Helix Partners was involved, they weren't going to stop until they got what they wanted. His phone rang again. Sarah. It's confirmed, she said. Castellano's been working for Helix since the day he left Quantum. And there's more. They're planning something big. A press release scheduled for this Friday. What kind of press release? I don't know yet, but the timing matches up with the data they've been pulling. They're building a case for something. Friday was 3 days away. I'm coming in, Adrian said. Now? Now. He left another note for Emma, grabbed his laptop, and drove back to Quantum Tower. Lena was in her office, standing at the window with her arms crossed, staring out at the city. She didn't turn around when he walked in. Sarah told you, Adrian said. Yeah. I'm sorry. Don't be. I should have seen this coming. She finally turned to face him, and her expression was hard, angry. Richard didn't just betray me. He's been planning this for months, maybe longer. What do you want to do? I want to destroy them. That's not a plan. Then help me make one. Adrian set his laptop down on her desk. First, we figure out what they're planning. Sarah said there's a press release scheduled for Friday. We need to know what's in it. How? We keep feeding them data, but this time we plant something they'll want to use. Like what? Adrian thought for a moment. Financial irregularities. Make it look like Quantum's books don't add up. They'll use it to tank your stock price, make you look incompetent. But our books are clean. I know, that's why it'll work. They'll jump on it without verifying, and when it turns out to be false, they'll look like they're spreading lies. Lena smiled, and for the first time since he'd met her, it looked genuine. That's devious. That's strategy. They spent the rest of the afternoon building the fake financial data, making it look just credible enough to be dangerous. Marcus handled the technical side while Sarah set up the monitoring. Adrian coordinated, making sure every detail was perfect. Around 6 p.m., Adrian's phone buzzed. Emma. Where are you? Adrian. Work, sorry. There's leftover pasta in the fridge. Emma. Are you going to be home tonight? He looked around the office, at Lena working furiously at her desk, at Marcus and Sarah hunched over laptops, at the mess of coffee cups and notepads and half-eaten takeout containers. Adrian. I don't know. I'll try. Emma. Okay. Love you. Adrian. Love you too, Bug. He set the phone down, guilt sitting heavy in his chest. You should go, Lena said. She'd been watching him. I'm fine. You have a daughter waiting for you. She's fine. Adrian, I said I'm fine. The words came out sharper than he meant them to. Lena didn't flinch. You told me not to forget about the people around me. Maybe you should take your own advice. Adrian looked at her, then at his phone, then at the screen full of code. Go home, Lena said, softer this time. We've got this covered for tonight. Be with your daughter. He wanted to argue, wanted to stay and see this through, but Emma's message was still on his screen, and the guilt was getting harder to ignore. Call me if anything changes, he said finally. I will. Adrian drove home through evening traffic, the city lights blurring past. He got back to the duplex just after 7 and found Emma on the couch, homework spread out on the coffee table. You're home, she said, looking up. Yeah. Are you staying? Yeah, Bug. I'm staying. She smiled and something in Adrian's chest unclenched. They ate pasta together, and he helped her finish her homework, and they watched a movie neither of them had seen before. Normal evening, normal life. But Adrian's phone stayed on the table, screen up, waiting for a call that didn't come. And when Emma finally went to bed and Adrian was alone in the quiet house, he opened his laptop and got back to work. Because Lena was right about one thing. He understood what it was like to lose yourself in something. And he wasn't sure he knew how to stop. The fake financial data went live at 2 a.m. Adrian was still awake, laptop open on the kitchen table, watching the monitoring dashboard Sarah had built. The ghost account accessed the planted files at 2:17 a.m., stayed connected for 43 minutes, and downloaded everything. His phone rang at 3:05. They took the bait, Sarah said. She sounded exhausted and wired at the same time. Full download. They didn't even hesitate. Where'd it go? Same server in Prague. But this time we tracked it further. The data got forwarded to 3 different email addresses. All of them registered to Helix Partners. Can you see what they're doing with it? Not yet. But if they're planning to use it in that press release on Friday, they'll need to verify it first. Cross-reference it with public filings, maybe bring in a forensic accountant. Which gives us time, Adrian said. Not much. It's already Wednesday morning. Adrian rubbed his eyes, the exhaustion starting to catch up with him. Get some sleep. We'll regroup tonight. What about you? I'll sleep when this is over. He hung up and stared at the laptop screen for another hour, watching data streams that meant nothing and everything at the same time. The house was quiet around him, too quiet. The kind of silence that made it easy to think about things he'd rather forget. He thought about the last time he'd worked like this. Different company, different crisis. But the same feeling, the weight of knowing that one wrong move could cost people everything. He'd made that wrong move once, And he'd spent 4 years making sure he never put himself in that position again. Adrian closed the laptop and went to bed, but sleep didn't come. He lay there in the dark, listening to the house settle, to Emma's soft breathing from the room down the hall, to the distant sound of traffic on the main road. At 6 a.m., he gave up and got out of bed. Emma found him in the kitchen an hour later, already on his second cup of coffee. "You look terrible," she said. "Good morning to you, too." She poured herself orange juice and sat down across from him. "Seriously, Dad, when's the last time you slept?" "I slept." "For how long?" Adrian didn't answer. Emma sighed, the kind of sigh that made her sound way older than 10. "This extra work thing, is it going to be over soon?" "Couple more days." "And then what?" "Then it's done." "And you go back to normal?" Adrian looked at her, really looked at her. She was growing up too fast. Already starting to see through the things he didn't say, the careful distance he kept between his past and their present. "Yeah, Bug, back to normal." She didn't look convinced, but she let it drop. Adrian walked her to the bus stop, came home, and tried to sleep for a few hours. His body was too wired, his mind too busy running through scenarios and contingencies. He gave up around noon and opened the laptop again. There was an email from Lena, sent at 4 in the morning. Subject: "Thank you, Adrian. I know you don't want to hear this, but I need to say it anyway. What you're doing matters, not just for the company, but for the people who work here. For me. I haven't trusted anyone in a long time. I forgot how. But I'm starting to remember. Thank you for that. L." Adrian read it twice, then closed it without responding. His phone rang. Marcus. "We've got a problem," Marcus said, no preamble. "What kind of problem?" "The board called an emergency meeting tomorrow morning. Someone leaked information to them about the security breach." Adrian sat up straight. "Who?" "We don't know. But they're panicking. Talking about bringing in outside consultants, maybe even shutting down the launch until we can guarantee the system's secure." "Can Lena stop them?" "She's trying, but she doesn't have majority control. If the board votes to delay, there's nothing she can do." Adrian thought fast. If they delay the launch, Helix wins. They'll use it as proof that Quantum's unstable, that Lena can't handle the company. It'll tank the stock price and make it easier for them to push a hostile takeover. "I know, Lena knows, but the board's scared." "Then we need to give them a reason not to be." "How?" "I don't know yet. Let me think." Adrian hung up and paced the kitchen, mind racing. They were running out of time. Friday's press release was bad enough, but if the board shut down the launch tomorrow, it wouldn't matter what dirt Helix tried to spread. The damage would already be done. He needed leverage. Something that would prove Quantum's system was secure, that the breach was under control, that moving forward was the right call. And then it clicked. Adrian grabbed his phone and called Sarah. "Tell me you still have access to that ghost account," he said. "Yeah, why?" "Because we're going to use it." "Use it how?" "We're going to let them think they won." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "I'm listening." "They're expecting us to shut down the ghost account eventually. When we do, they'll know we found them, and they'll adjust their strategy. But what if we don't shut it down? What if we keep feeding them data, real data this time, but we control the narrative? You want to feed them information that makes us look vulnerable." "Exactly. Something that'll make them overconfident, make them think they've got us beat. And then what? And then we flip it, expose everything at once, the ghost account, the data theft, Helix's involvement. We turn their attack into proof that we're on top of the threat." "That's risky as hell." "You got a better idea?" Sarah laughed, short and sharp. "Not even a little bit. I'll talk to Lena." Adrian spent the rest of the afternoon building the strategy, mapping out exactly what data to feed through the ghost account and when. It had to be convincing enough that Helix would believe it, but contained enough that it wouldn't actually compromise anything critical. By the time he had to leave for his shift at Quantum Tower, he'd built a plan that was either brilliant or completely insane, possibly both. Emma was doing homework when he left. "I'll be back late," he said, grabbing his keys. "I know. There's money on the counter if you want to order pizza." "I know." Adrian hesitated at the door. "I'm sorry I haven't been around much this week." Emma looked up from her math textbook. "It's okay, Dad. I get it." "You shouldn't have to get it. You're 10. She smiled a little. "Almost 11. Not for 3 more months. Still closer than you think." Adrian walked back over and kissed the top of her head. Love you, Bug. Love you too. Now go save the world or whatever. He laughed despite everything and headed out. At Quantum Tower, the 15th floor was buzzing with activity. Lena's office had turned into a war room. Whiteboards covered in diagrams, laptops everywhere, half the engineering team camped out on the floor. Lena was at the center of it, directing traffic like a general coordinating a battle. She saw Adrian walk in and immediately cross the room. Sarah told me your plan, she said. And I think it's crazy, but I also think it might work. That's not exactly a ringing endorsement. It's the best you're going to get right now. She pulled him aside, lowering her voice. The board meeting's at 9 tomorrow morning. If this doesn't work, it'll work. You don't know that. No, but I'm going to act like I do, and you're going to back me up. Lena studied his face for a long moment. You've done this before. Whatever your old job was, it involved this kind of thing. Yeah. Are you going to tell me what happened? No. She nodded slowly. Fair enough. But Adrian, whatever it was, you're not that person anymore. You don't have to be. I know. Do you? Adrian didn't answer. He moved past her to the conference table where Marcus and Sarah were already set up. Walk me through it, he said. For the next 3 hours, they refined the plan. Sarah would feed carefully crafted data through the Ghost account. Internal memos suggesting panic, financial projections showing instability, emails between executives discussing whether to abandon the launch. All of it fake, but all of it believable. Meanwhile, Marcus would set up a separate monitoring system to track exactly what Helix did with the information, where it went, who accessed it, what decisions they made based on it. And Adrian would coordinate the timing, making sure everything hit at exactly the right moment. At midnight, they pushed the first batch of fake data through. The Ghost account accessed it 17 minutes later. They're fast, Sarah said, watching the download progress. They're desperate, Adrian corrected. They know the launch is in 2 days. They're scrambling to find anything they can use. Marcus pulled up another screen. The data's being forwarded to the same email addresses, but there's a new one this time. Who? Richard Castellano. Lena, who'd been watching from across the room, walked over. Let me see that. Marcus turned the screen toward her. There was Castellano's name, clear as day, receiving every piece of fake data they'd planted. He's coordinating this, Lena said quietly. He knows our systems, our people, our vulnerabilities. He's the one telling Helix where to hit us. Then we hit him back, Adrian said. How? Adrian pulled up a new window and started typing. We make him think he's winning. Feed him something so good, so damaging, that he can't resist using it. And when he does, we prove it's fake. What kind of something? Sarah asked. Adrian looked at Lena. How would you feel about faking your own resignation? The room went silent. What? Lena said. We plant a memo. Make it look like you're stepping down as CEO due to the security crisis. Say you're taking full responsibility, that the board forced your hand. Castellano will jump on it. He hates you. He'll want to make sure the world knows you failed. And when it turns out to be fake, he looks like he's spreading false information to manipulate stock prices, which is securities fraud, which means Helix has to either throw him under the bus or go down with him. Marcus was nodding slowly. That could work. That could also destroy my reputation, Lena said. For about 6 hours, Adrian said, until we prove it was planted. And when we do, you come out looking like the victim of a coordinated attack. It'll generate sympathy, maybe even support from people who didn't trust you before. Lena walked to the window, arms crossed, staring out at the city. Adrian could see her reflection in the glass, the tension in her shoulders, the way she was biting her lower lip. This is my company, she said finally. I built it from nothing, and you're asking me to fake walking away from it. I'm asking you to trust me, Adrian said. She turned around. Why should I? Because I haven't lied to you yet, and because you know I don't have anything to gain from this except making sure innocent people don't get hurt. Lena looked at him for a long time, then she nodded. Do it. They spent the next 2 hours crafting the fake resignation memo. It had to sound like Lena, formal but personal, taking responsibility without admitting fault. Sarah made sure it had the right metadata, the right digital signatures, all the little details that would make it look legitimate. At 2:30 a.m., they pushed it through the ghost account. At 2:47, Castellano downloaded it. At 3:15, it was forwarded to 6 different email addresses, including 2 journalists and a financial analyst who specialized in tech company valuations. He's shopping it around, Sarah said, trying to verify it before he goes public. Will they be able to? Marcus asked. Not before morning. And by then, we'll have already exposed it. Adrian checked his watch. 5 hours until the board meeting. 5 hours to make this work. Everyone go home, Lena said suddenly. Get a couple hours of sleep. We're going to need to be sharp tomorrow. I'm fine, Sarah said. I wasn't asking. One by one, they packed up and left. Adrian was the last one out. You too, Lena said. Go be with your daughter. She's asleep. Then go sleep next to her or something. I don't know. Just go home. Adrian almost argued, but the exhaustion was catching up with him, and Lena was right. He needed to be sharp tomorrow. What about you? He asked. I'll sleep here. I've got a couch in my office. Lena, go, Adrian. I'll see you at 8. He left. The drive home was a blur. Adrian barely remembered parking, walking into the duplex, checking on Emma. She was asleep, one arm thrown over her head, breathing steady and slow. He stood in her doorway for a long time, just watching her. This was why he'd walked away from his old life. This right here, the chance to be present for the small, ordinary moments. The chance to be someone she could count on. But standing there, laptop bag still slung over his shoulder, exhaustion pulling at every muscle, Adrian couldn't shake the feeling that he was failing her anyway. He set an alarm for 7 and collapsed on the couch without bothering to change. Sleep came fast and dreamless. The alarm dragged him back to consciousness 4 hours later. Adrian stumbled into the kitchen, made coffee, and checked his phone. 3 texts from Sarah, all sent in the last hour. Sarah. Castellano took the bait. He's setting up a press conference for this afternoon. Sarah. Helix is backing him. They're going public with everything. Sarah. We need to move fast. Adrian called her immediately. Where are we? He asked. Lena's at the board meeting right now. She's stalling, trying to buy us time. But if Castellano's press conference happens before we can expose the fake memo, we're done. When's the press conference? 2 p.m. Adrian looked at the clock. It was 7:32, 6.5 hours. Can you trace where the memo went after Castellano forwarded it? Already did. It went to a reporter at the Business Journal, an analyst at Morgan Price, and 3 board members at Helix. Wait, board members? Yeah, why? Adrian's mind was racing. If Helix board members have the memo, that means they're planning to use it to justify something, probably a hostile takeover bid. They'll claim Quantum's unstable, that Lena's stepping down proves it, and they'll offer to buy the company at a discount. That's legal? If they disclose the information properly, yeah. But if we can prove they knowingly used false information to manipulate the market... Securities fraud, Sarah finished. Just like Castellano. Exactly. We don't just take down Castellano. We take down Helix. How? We need proof that they knew the memo was fake, or that they should have known. Sarah was quiet for a moment. I might have something. When Castellano forwarded the memo to Helix, one of the board members replied, I've got the email in the monitoring logs. What did it say? This is exactly what we needed. Move forward with the acquisition proposal. Don't wait for verification. Adrian smiled. That's it. That's proof they acted on unverified information. Get that email to Lena. Now. On it. Adrian hung up and started getting ready. Emma wandered out of her room a few minutes later, still in pajamas. You're up early, she said. Big day. Is the extra work thing almost done? Yeah, Bug. Almost done. She poured herself cereal and sat down at the table. Are you going to be home tonight? Adrian knelt down next to her chair. I don't know, but I promise, after today, things go back to normal. Okay? You keep saying that. I know, and I mean it. Emma studied his face, then nodded. Okay? Adrian kissed her forehead, made sure she had everything she needed for school, and headed out. At Quantum Tower, the 15th floor was chaos. The board meeting had spilled out into the hallway, executives in suits talking in hushed, urgent voices. Adrian pushed through to Lena's office and found her with Sarah and Marcus, all three of them looking like they hadn't slept in days. "Tell me you got the email," Adrian said. Sarah turned her laptop around. There it was. The reply from the Helix board member, time-stamped just 3 hours after Castellano forwarded the fake resignation memo. "This proves they didn't verify it," Adrian said. "They saw information that supported their agenda and ran with it." "Will that hold up legally?" Lena asked. "I don't know. But it'll hold up in the court of public opinion, and right now, that's what matters." Marcus pulled up another screen. "Castellano's press conference is scheduled for 2. That gives us about 6 hours. We go public first," Adrian said. "We release a statement explaining the security breach, the ghost account, the data theft. We show that we've been tracking it the whole time and that the resignation memo was planted as bait. And we make it very clear that anyone who acted on that information did so without verification." "That'll burn Helix," Sarah said. "That's the point." Lena was pacing now, the same restless energy Adrian had seen that first night. "If we do this, there's no going back. Helix will come after us with everything they've got." "They're already coming after you," Adrian said. "At least this way you're ready." She stopped pacing and looked at him. "You're sure about this?" "No, but I'm out of better ideas." Lena laughed, short, sharp, a little bit wild. "All right, let's burn it down." They spent the next hour drafting the statement, fact-checking every detail, making sure it was airtight. Sarah compiled the evidence, screenshots of the ghost account activity, logs of the data transfers, the email from the Helix board member. Marcus built a timeline showing exactly when everything happened and how it all connected. At 10:30, they released it. The statement went out to every major news outlet, every tech blog, every financial analyst who covered the industry. Sarah posted it on Quantum's website, on social media, everywhere it could possibly reach. And then they waited. The first call came in at 10:47, a reporter from TechCrunch wanting to verify the details. The second call came at 10:53, an analyst asking for comment. By 11:15, it was trending on 3 different platforms. By noon, Castellano's press conference had been canceled. By 12:30, Helix Partners released a statement denying any involvement in corporate espionage and claiming they'd been misled by a rogue consultant. By 1 p.m., the SEC announced they were opening an investigation. Lena stood at the window of her office, watching the city below, and for the first time in days, she looked calm. "We did it," she said quietly. "You did it," Adrian corrected. "I just helped." She turned to face him. "No, you saved this company, and you saved me. I didn't—" "Yes, you did." She crossed the room and stood directly in front of him. "I was so focused on winning that I forgot what I was fighting for. You reminded me." Adrian didn't know what to say to that. "I meant what I said in that email," Lena continued. "I haven't trusted anyone in a long time, but I trust you." "Lena, and I know you're going to walk away after this. I know you don't want the job, the money, any of it, but I need you to know that you matter. What you did here matters, and I'm not going to forget it." Adrian looked at her, really looked at her. Somewhere over the last week, the angry, desperate CEO he'd first met had turned into someone else. Someone who'd remembered how to see the people around her. Someone who'd chosen to do the right thing even when it cost her. "You're going to be okay," he said. "I know, because I learned from the best." She held out her hand. Adrian shook it. And then he left. He walked out of Quantum Tower for the last time, got in his car, and drove home. Emma was already back from school doing homework at the kitchen table. "You're home early," she said, surprised. "Yeah, the extra work thing is done." "Really?" "Really?" Emma grinned. "Does that mean you're going to actually sleep tonight?" "That's the plan." She jumped up and hugged him, and Adrian held on tight, breathing in the smell of her shampoo, feeling the weight of her arms around his waist. This was what mattered. Not the code, not the crisis, not the victory, just this. For 3 days, Adrian convinced himself it was over. He went back to his regular schedule, waking up at 4, making dinner for Emma, helping with homework, driving to Quantum Tower for the night shift. The 15th floor was back to being empty when he arrived. The crisis had passed. The news cycle had moved on. Life returned to normal. Except it didn't feel normal anymore. Adrian found himself pausing outside Lena's office, remembering the chaos of that week. The whiteboards covered in diagrams. The smell of cold coffee and stress. The look on Lena's face when she'd realized they'd won. He vacuumed around it and moved on. On the fourth day, Marcus caught him in the hallway. "Adrian, hey." Marcus looked different than he had during the crisis, less exhausted, more put together. "I've been hoping I'd run into you." Adrian stopped, hand on the vacuum handle. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, great, actually. I just wanted to say thank you for what you did." "I didn't do much." "That's bullshit, and you know it." Marcus smiled. "Lena told us everything, how you figured out the ghost account, the fake data stream, all of it. You saved this company." "Lena saved the company. I just helped her see what was already there." "Why do you do that?" "Do what?" "Act like you don't matter." Adrian didn't have an answer for that. Marcus shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable. "Look, I know you turned down the job offer, and I get it. You've got your life, your daughter, all that. But if you ever change your mind, we'd take you back in a heartbeat. No questions asked." "I appreciate that." "I mean it. You're the best analyst I've seen in 20 years, and I've worked with a lot of analysts." Adrian felt something twist in his chest. "I'm not an analyst anymore. Could have fooled me." Marcus walked away, and Adrian stood there in the empty hallway, vacuum humming beside him, wondering why those words hit harder than they should have. He finished his shift and went home. Emma was already asleep when he got there. Adrian checked on her, same as always, one arm thrown over her head, breathing steady, and then sat down at the kitchen table. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. "This is Sarah. Got your number from the employee directory. Hope that's okay." Adrian stared at the message for a moment, then typed back. Adrian: "It's fine. Everything all right?" Sarah: "Yeah, just wanted to check in, make sure you're doing okay." Adrian: "I'm fine." Sarah: "That's what everyone says when they're not fine." Adrian almost smiled. Adrian: "I'm good, really. Just back to normal." Sarah: "Normal's overrated." Adrian: "Maybe." There was a pause, and then another message came through. Sarah: "Lena misses you. She won't say it, but she does. You were good for her." Adrian: "She doesn't need me. She's got you and Marcus." Sarah: "It's not the same. You challenged her, made her think differently. We just work for her." Adrian: "You're more than that." Sarah: "Thanks. But seriously, if you ever want to come back, even just to visit, you should. I think it would mean a lot to her." Adrian set the phone down without responding. He went to bed, but sleep didn't come easy. His mind kept circling back to the office, to the code, to the feeling of solving problems that mattered. He told himself for 4 years that this life, the small, quiet, invisible life, was what he wanted, what he needed, what was safe. But lying there in the dark, he wasn't sure anymore. The next morning, Emma asked him about career day. "It's this Friday," she said over breakfast. "You said you'd come." "I will. You have to bring something, like something that shows what you do." Adrian looked at his vacuum cart in the corner of the living room. "I'm not sure a mop is very exciting, Bug." "You could talk about the extra work thing, the project you just finished." "That's not really my job." "But you did it, and it mattered, right?" Adrian set down his coffee cup. "How do you know it mattered?" "Because you were stressed about it. You only get stressed when things are important." She wasn't wrong. "I'll figure something out," Adrian said. Emma smiled and went back to her cereal, and Adrian sat there wondering when his daughter had gotten so good at reading him. On Friday afternoon, Adrian walked into Emma's classroom carrying a laptop and a folder full of printed diagrams. The room was full of parents, a firefighter in uniform, a nurse with a stethoscope, a chef with a tray of cookies. Adrian felt out of place in his jeans and maintenance company polo. Emma waved at him from her desk, grinning. Mrs. Alvarez, Emma's teacher, called the presentations to order. One by one, the parents stood up and talked about their jobs. The firefighter showed photos of rescue operations. The nurse explained how vaccines worked. The chef let the kids sample cookies. Then it was Adrian's turn. He stood up, feeling 20 pairs of eyes on him. "Hi, I'm Adrian, Emma's dad. I work nights doing maintenance at an office building downtown." He pulled up the laptop. "But a couple of weeks ago, I got to help with something different. A company was having a security problem. Someone was trying to steal their data, and I helped them figure out who was doing it and stop them. One of the kids raised a hand. Like a spy? Adrian smiled. Kind of, but with computers instead of gadgets. He walked them through a simplified version of what had happened. The ghost account, the fake data, the trap they'd set. He showed them diagrams of how data flows through a network, how security systems work, how you can track digital footprints. The kids were riveted. Emma was beaming. When he finished, Mrs. Alvarez started the applause, and Adrian sat down feeling lighter than he had in days. After the presentations, Emma ran up to him. "That was so cool, Dad." "Yeah? Yeah, you made maintenance sound like being a detective." "I guess it kind of is. You notice things other people miss." Emma hugged him, and Adrian held on tight, grateful for this moment, this day, this life he'd built. But as they walked out of the school together, his phone buzzed. It was Lena. "Lena, I need to see you. It's important." Adrian's stomach dropped. "Adrian, is something wrong?" "Lena, not wrong, just complicated. Can you come by the office?" "Adrian, when?" "Lena, tonight?" Adrian looked at Emma, who was chattering about one of her friend's presentations, completely oblivious. "Adrian, I'll be there." He took Emma home, made sure she had dinner, and told her he had to run an errand. "Another work thing?" she asked, suspicious. "Just a quick one. I'll be back before bedtime." She didn't look happy, but she nodded. Adrian drove to Quantum Tower, took the elevator to 15, and found Lena in her office. She was standing at the window again, arms crossed, staring out at the city. "You came," she said without turning around. "You said it was important." She turned to face him, and Adrian saw something in her expression he hadn't seen before. Uncertainty. Fear, maybe. "The SEC finished their investigation," Lena said. "They're charging Helix Partners and Richard Castellano with securities fraud. Everything we uncovered, the ghost account, the data theft, the fake memo, it all held up." "That's good news." "It is. But it also means I have to testify. In front of a grand jury, and probably in court if this goes to trial." "You'll be fine. I'm not worried about me." She paused. "They want you to testify too." Adrian went very still. "They know you were the one who uncovered the attack," Lena continued. "They want you to walk them through the technical details, explain how the ghost account worked, how we tracked the data. Your testimony is critical to the case." "No." "Adrian, no, I can't." "Why not?" "Because testifying means going on record, means putting my name in court documents, means risking someone from my old life finding me." "I just can't," Adrian said. Lena studied him for a long moment. "What are you running from?" "I'm not running." "Yes, you are. You've been running since the day I met you, maybe longer." She took a step closer. "I get it, I do. Whatever happened in your past, it scared you enough that you walked away from everything you were good at. But Adrian, you can't hide forever." "I'm not hiding. I'm protecting my daughter." "From what?" Adrian looked away. "You wouldn't understand. Try me." He wanted to walk out, wanted to shut this down before it went any further, but Lena was looking at him with something that looked like genuine concern, and some part of him, some buried, exhausted part, wanted to tell someone, anyone. "My old job," he said finally. "I worked in cybersecurity for a defense contractor. High-level stuff. Classified projects. I was good at it, really good. And I got recruited for a special operation, something that was supposed to stop a terrorist network from launching a coordinated attack." "What happened?" "We stopped the attack. But we didn't know the intelligence was bad. The network we thought we were tracking, they were dissidents, political activists, not terrorists." Adrian's voice went flat. 3 of them died in the raid, innocent people, and I was the one who gave the green light." Lena's expression didn't change, but her eyes softened. "When I found out what we'd done, I tried to blow the whistle," Adrian continued. "Tried to report it through proper channels. But the contractor buried it, classified the whole operation, and they made it very clear that if I kept pushing, I'd be the one who went down for it." "So you walked away?" "I ran, changed my name, not legally, just stopped using my old one, moved across the country, took the most invisible job I could find. And I've spent the last 4 years making sure nobody ever looks at me closely enough to ask questions. And your daughter? Emma doesn't know. She thinks her dad's always been a maintenance worker, and that's how it needs to stay. Lena sat down slowly, like her legs had stopped working. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Nobody does. That's the point. But testifying would put my name in public records, would mean journalists digging into my background, would mean risking someone from the contractor finding out where I am. Adrian shook his head. I can't take that risk. Not with Emma. What if I could protect you? You can't. I have lawyers, good ones. They could file a motion to keep your testimony sealed, use a pseudonym in the court records. It's possible. It's not guaranteed. No. But neither is staying invisible forever. Lena stood up and walked over to him. You did the right thing, Adrian, 4 years ago and 2 weeks ago. You saved lives. You stopped bad people from winning. That matters. It doesn't matter if it costs me my daughter. It won't. I won't let it. Adrian wanted to believe her, wanted to think that maybe, just maybe, he could do this without everything falling apart. But he'd learned the hard way that good intentions didn't stop bad things from happening. I need to think about it, he said. Okay. But Adrian, the deadline for witness lists is Monday, so you don't have long. He nodded and left. The drive home felt longer than usual. Adrian's mind was racing, running through scenarios, weighing risks, trying to find a way forward that didn't end in disaster. Emma was waiting up for him when he got home. You said you'd be back before bedtime, she said, arms crossed. I know, I'm sorry. Is everything okay? Yeah, Bug, just complicated. Emma studied his face with that too wise look she got sometimes. You look sad. I'm not sad, just tired. Dad. Adrian sat down on the couch and Emma climbed up next to him, tucking herself under his arm. What if I told you I had to do something important? Adrian said slowly. Something that could help a lot of people. But it might also be risky. For us. How risky? I don't know. Maybe not at all. Maybe a lot. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Is it the right thing to do? I think so. Then you should do it. Even if it's scary? Especially if it's scary. That's what being brave is. Adrian looked down at his daughter, at her serious expression and fierce eyes, and felt something crack open in his chest. When did you get so smart? He asked. I've always been smart. You just don't notice because you're tired all the time. Adrian laughed despite everything and pulled her closer. I love you, Bug. Love you too, Dad. They sat there for a while just holding each other, and Adrian tried to memorize the moment. The weight of her against his side. The smell of her shampoo. The steady rhythm of her breathing. Because no matter what he decided, things were about to change. Over the weekend, Adrian barely slept. He went through the motions, making meals, doing laundry, helping Emma with a school project, but his mind was somewhere else. On Sunday night, after Emma went to bed, he called Lena. I'll do it, he said. I'll testify. There was a pause. Then Lena said, Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. I'll have my lawyers file the protective motion first thing Monday morning. Your name won't appear in any public records. I promise. And if they deny the motion, then we fight it. All the way to the top if we have to. Adrian closed his eyes. Okay. Thank you, Adrian. This means everything. Just make sure it's worth it. He hung up and sat in the dark kitchen, wondering if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. Monday morning, Lena's lawyers filed the motion to seal Adrian's testimony and use a pseudonym in all court documents. By Tuesday afternoon, they had a hearing scheduled in front of a judge. Wednesday morning, Adrian found himself in a courthouse downtown, sitting in a conference room with Lena and 3 lawyers in expensive suits. The judge is sympathetic, one of the lawyers said. She was older, gray-haired, with the kind of voice that suggested she'd won a lot of arguments. But the prosecution is pushing back. They want your real name on record for credibility purposes. Can they force that? Adrian asked. Technically, yes, but we're arguing that the risk to your safety outweighs the need for public identification. We filed supporting documentation about your previous work and the threats you faced. What are the odds? The lawyer hesitated. 50-50. Adrian's stomach dropped. Lena reached over and put her hand on his arm. Whatever happens, we'll handle it. The hearing started at 10. Adrian sat in the gallery while the lawyers argued back and forth, using words like precedent and public interest and witness protection. The judge, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes, listened without expression. After an hour, she called a recess to review the filings. Adrian stepped outside into the hallway, needing air. Lena followed him. "You okay?" she asked. "Not really. I'm sorry. I know this isn't what you signed up for. It's not your fault. Feels like it is." Adrian looked at her, really looked at her. She'd changed over the last month. The sharp edges had softened. The desperation had been replaced by something steadier. She looked like someone who'd remembered how to care about things beyond winning. "You did the right thing," Adrian said. "Exposing Helix, fighting back. Don't second-guess that." "Even if it costs you?" "Even then." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The hearing reconvened at noon. The judge returned to the bench, opened a folder, and looked directly at Adrian. "Mr. Cole," she said, "I've reviewed your motion and the supporting documentation. I'm prepared to rule." Adrian's heart was pounding so loud he could barely hear her. "Given the unique circumstances of your case and the credible threat to your safety, I'm granting the motion to seal your testimony. Your legal name will be redacted from all public court documents, and you'll be referred to as John Doe in any public filings. However, your full identity will be disclosed to the defense team under protective order." Adrian exhaled. "That said," the judge continued, "if the defense challenges this ruling or if any information leaks, I reserve the right to revisit this decision. Do you understand?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Good. The witness coordinator will be in touch about scheduling your deposition." The gavel came down, and it was over. Lena grabbed his arm. "You did it!" "We did it," Adrian corrected. Outside the courthouse, the lawyers shook his hand and congratulated him and told him they'd be in touch. Lena walked him to his car. "Thank you," she said, "for trusting me, for taking the risk. Don't thank me yet. We still have to get through the actual testimony. You'll be great." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." She paused. "Adrian, I know you're planning to disappear again after this. Go back to your quiet life. And I get it. I do. But I want you to know that you always have a place at Quantum, not as a maintenance worker, as whatever you want to be." "Lena, I'm not asking for an answer now. Just think about it." She walked away before he could respond, and Adrian stood there in the parking lot watching her go. That night, Emma asked him how his day was. "Complicated," Adrian said. "That's your favorite word lately." "Yeah, I guess it is." Emma set down her fork. "Are you going to tell me what's going on?" Adrian looked at his daughter, at her serious expression and fierce eyes, and made a decision. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, "about my old job, before you were born." Emma leaned forward, listening, and for the first time in 4 years, Adrian started talking. He told her about the defense contractor, about the classified work, about the operation that went wrong. He didn't go into details. She was 10, she didn't need to know everything, but he told her enough. Told her about the whistle he'd tried to blow, the threats he'd faced, the decision to walk away and start over. When he finished, Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "So you're kind of a hero." Adrian laughed, surprised. "I'm really not." "Yeah, you are. You tried to do the right thing even when it was scary. That's what heroes do." "I ran away, Em. Because you had to. Because of me." She reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm glad you did. I'm glad you're here." Adrian felt his throat tighten. "Me too, Bug." "Are you in trouble now?" "No, I don't think so. But I had to testify about something, and there's a chance people might find out about my past." "Will we have to move?" "I hope not, but maybe." Emma nodded slowly. "Okay. As long as we're together, it's okay." Adrian pulled her into a hug, holding on tight. Whatever happened next, at least she knew the truth. At least he'd stopped hiding from the person who mattered most. The deposition was scheduled for the following Thursday. Adrian spent the week preparing with Lena's lawyers, going over timelines and technical details, practicing how to explain complex security concepts in language a jury could understand. They met in a conference room downtown, away from Quantum Tower, away from anywhere Adrian might be recognized. Emma knew something was happening, She didn't ask too many questions, but Adrian could see her watching him at breakfast, at dinner, during the quiet moments when she thought he wasn't paying attention. "You're nervous," she said on Wednesday night. "A little." "Will I get to meet the lady you helped, Lena?" Adrian looked up from the dishes he was washing. "Maybe." "Why?" Emma shrugged. "I don't know. You talk about her different than other people." "Different how? Like she's your friend. You don't really have friends." Adrian dried his hands on a towel. "That's not true." "Dad, you work nights. You sleep during the day. The only people you talk to are me and Mrs. Chen next door when she asks you to move your car." She wasn't wrong. "I have friends," Adrian said, but even he could hear how weak it sounded. "You have people you're nice to. That's not the same thing." Adrian sat down at the table. "When did you turn into a therapist? Someone has to be." Emma came over and leaned against his shoulder. "I'm just saying, it's okay if you want to have a life that's bigger than this. I'm not going to break if you're not here every second." "I know that." "Do you?" Adrian wrapped his arm around her. "I'm trying, Bug." "I know. That's why I'm not worried." Thursday morning came too fast. Adrian put on the only suit he owned, bought secondhand 4 years ago for a court hearing that never happened, and drove downtown. The deposition was being held in a law office on the 20th floor of a building that made Quantum Tower look modest. Lena met him in the lobby. "You look terrified," she said. "I feel terrified." "You're going to be fine. Just tell the truth. Answer the questions. Don't volunteer extra information." "That's what the lawyer said." "Because it's good advice." She straightened his tie, which he'd tied wrong. "And remember, your identity is protected. Nobody in that room knows who you really are except me and my legal team." "What about Helix's lawyers?" "They know your legal name because of the protective order, but they've been warned. If they leak it, they'll face contempt charges and possible disbarment." Adrian nodded, trying to calm the pounding in his chest. The deposition room was smaller than he'd expected. A long table, a court reporter with her machine, 2 lawyers from the prosecution, and 3 from Helix's defense team. No Richard Castellano. He'd already given his testimony, probably trying to cut a deal. Adrian sat down across from the defense lawyers. The lead attorney was a man in his 50s, silver hair, expensive suit, the kind of person who'd spent his whole career protecting people who didn't deserve protection. "Good morning, Mr. Doe," he said, putting emphasis on the fake name. "Morning." The court reporter swore him in, and the questions started. They were technical at first. "Walk us through how you discovered the ghost account. Explain the data siphon. How did you track the information flow?" Adrian answered carefully, methodically, the way Lena's lawyers had coached him. Then the defense attorney shifted tactics. "Mr. Doe, you claim you're a maintenance worker. Is that correct?" "Yes. And yet you possess extensive knowledge of cybersecurity, network architecture, and data forensics." "I used to work in that field." "Used to? When?" "Several years ago." "Can you be more specific?" 4 years ago." "And what was your position?" Adrian hesitated. Lena's lawyer, the gray-haired woman from the hearing, spoke up. "Objection. The witness's employment history is not relevant to this matter. It goes to credibility," the defense attorney said. "If the witness has expertise in this area, the court needs to know where that expertise comes from." The prosecution attorney nodded. "He has a point?" Lena's lawyer looked at Adrian, and he could see the apology in her eyes. "I worked for a defense contractor," Adrian said. "Cybersecurity operations." "Which contractor?" "I'd prefer not to say." "Unfortunately, your preferences aren't relevant here." "Which contractor?" Adrian's hands were shaking under the table. "Sentinel Defense Solutions." The defense attorney made a note. "And why did you leave?" "Personal reasons." "Can you elaborate?" "No." "Mr. Doe, my reasons for leaving are not relevant to this case. I left. I moved on. That's all that matters." The defense attorney leaned back, studying him. "Did you leave under good terms?" Lena's lawyer stood up. "Objection. This is harassment. The witness's employment history has been established. Move on." "Sustained," the prosecution attorney said. "Next question." But Adrian could see it in the defense attorney's eyes. He'd found something, a thread to pull. The rest of the deposition passed in a blur. More questions about the ghost account. About the fake financial data? About the timeline of events? Adrian answered on autopilot, but his mind was somewhere else. They knew where he'd worked, which meant they could dig, find out what happened, why he really left. When it was finally over, Adrian walked out of the building on shaky legs. Lena caught up with him on the sidewalk. "You did great. They know about Sentinel. So what? You answered their questions. You didn't lie. They're going to investigate. They're going to find out what happened." "Maybe. But even if they do, it doesn't matter. You were a whistleblower. You tried to do the right thing. That makes you sympathetic, not suspicious." Adrian wanted to believe her. They stood there on the sidewalk, people rushing past them, the city moving forward like it always did. "I should get home," Adrian said. "Emma's waiting." "Before you go," Lena pulled out an envelope. "I wanted to give you this." "What is it?" "Open it." Inside was a check. $50,000, just like she'd promised. Adrian stared at it. "Lena, you earned it. More than earned it." "I can't take this." "Why not?" "Because—" He stopped, not sure how to explain. "It feels wrong. Taking money for work you did feels wrong. Taking this much money feels wrong." Lena took the check back, pulled out a pen, and crossed out the amount. She wrote a new number, 100,000. There. Now it's accurate. "Lena, Adrian, you saved this company. You saved 3,000 jobs. You stopped a hostile takeover by one of the most predatory firms in the industry. Do you have any idea what that's worth?" She held out the check. "This isn't charity. This is payment for services rendered. Take it." Adrian looked at the check, at the number that could change everything. Pay off his car. Move to a better apartment. Put money away for Emma's college. Stop living month to month. Stop being invisible. He took the check. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome." Lena smiled. "And Adrian, the job offer still stands, if you ever want it." "I'll think about it. That's all I ask." She walked away, and Adrian stood there on the sidewalk, holding a check that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. That night, he told Emma about the money. "That's a lot," she said, eyes wide. "Yeah. What are you going to do with it?" "I don't know yet. Maybe save it. Maybe use some of it to fix up the apartment. Or we could move somewhere better." Adrian looked around their small living room, the worn couch, the coffee table with the wobbly leg, the kitchen where the sink still leaked no matter how many times he tried to fix it. "Would you want that?" he asked. "To move?" Emma thought about it. "Maybe, but only if you're happy there too." "I'm happy here." "No, you're not. You're safe here. That's different." Adrian stared at his 10-year-old daughter, wondering when she'd started seeing through him so completely. "You're right," he said. "I've been choosing safe over happy for a long time. So maybe stop doing that. It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because—" Adrian stopped. "Because why? Because he was scared? Because hiding had become easier than living? Because he'd convinced himself that being invisible was the same as being a good father?" Emma was watching him, waiting. "You're right," Adrian said again. "Maybe it's time to stop hiding." Over the next week, things started to shift. Adrian deposited the check. He called a real estate agent and started looking at apartments in better neighborhoods, places with good schools, safe streets, yards where Emma could play. He told his supervisor at the maintenance company that he'd be cutting back to part-time hours. And he called Lena. "I want to talk about that job offer," he said. There was a pause. Then Lena said, "Really?" "Really, but I have conditions." "I'm listening." "I work during school hours. 9 to 3, Monday through Friday. Anything outside that, I'm with my daughter." "Done." "And I want to be transparent with the team about who I am and what I did before. No more hiding." "Adrian, I'm done being invisible, Lena. If I'm going to do this, I'm doing it as myself, not as some ghost who pretends he doesn't have a past." Lena was quiet for a moment. "Okay, we'll make it work. One more thing. I want to bring Emma by sometime. Let her see where I work. Meet the people I work with. I'd like that." "Good. Then I'll see you Monday." He hung up and sat there in the kitchen of the duplex he'd lived in for 4 years, feeling something he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Monday morning, Adrian walked into Quantum Tower wearing jeans and a button-down shirt, carrying a laptop bag instead of a vacuum cart. He took the elevator to the 15th floor, and when the doors opened, Sarah was waiting. "Welcome back," she said, grinning. "Thanks." She led him to a desk near the windows, not a cubicle, a real desk with a view of the city. His name was already on a placard. Adrian Cole, Senior Security Analyst. "Lena wanted you to have the good spot," Sarah said. "Don't tell Marcus I told you, but he's jealous." Marcus appeared from around a corner. "I'm not jealous. I'm just saying, I've been here 5 years and I'm stuck by the break room." "That's because you spilled coffee on the CEO," Sarah said. "That was one time." Adrian smiled, feeling the tension start to ease. Lena showed up a few minutes later. "You came. I said I would. I wasn't sure you'd actually go through with it." "Neither was I, honestly." She handed him a folder. "Your first project. We're expanding our security infrastructure, and I want you to design the new protocols. Full creative control." Adrian opened the folder. It was a challenge, a real one. The kind of problem that would take weeks to solve and would actually matter when it was done. "I'll get started," he said. Over the next month, Adrian settled into a rhythm he hadn't known was possible. He worked during the day, solving problems that stretched his brain in ways he'd forgotten it could stretch. He went home to Emma in the afternoons, helped with homework, made dinner, was present in a way he'd never quite managed when he was exhausted from night shifts. The nightmares about Sentinels started to fade. Not completely, they'd probably never go away completely, but enough that he could sleep through the night more often than not. And slowly, carefully, he started to let people in. Sarah became a friend. She and her wife invited Adrian and Emma over for dinner, and they spent an evening playing board games and eating too much pizza. Marcus started teaching Emma basic coding during lunch breaks when she came by the office after school. And Lena became something Adrian hadn't expected. They had coffee most mornings before the team meetings. They talked about work, about life, about the things they'd both learned from almost losing everything. One Friday afternoon, after everyone else had left, Lena stopped by his desk. "Emma's birthday is coming up, right?" she said. "How did you know that?" "I pay attention. What are you doing for it?" "Haven't decided yet. She wants to go to the coast, spend a weekend at the beach." "That sounds perfect." "Yeah." Adrian paused. "You want to come?" Lena looked surprised. "Really?" "Emma asked if you could. Said she wants to meet the person her dad talks about all the time." "You talk about me?" "Apparently more than I realized," Lena smiled. "I'd love to come." They drove to the coast the following weekend. Adrian, Emma, and Lena in Adrian's beat-up sedan that probably wouldn't survive another year, but made it one more time. They stayed in a small rental house right on the beach. Emma spent the entire first day in the water, diving through waves and collecting shells. Lena helped her build a sandcastle that was more ambitious than structurally sound. Adrian watched from the porch, coffee in hand, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. That night, after Emma went to bed, Adrian and Lena sat on the beach watching the waves roll in under a sky full of stars. "Thank you for inviting me," Lena said. "Thank you for coming. Emma's amazing. You've done an incredible job with her. She did most of it herself. I just tried not to screw up too badly." Lena laughed. "I think you did better than that." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Lena said, "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Do you regret it? Walking away from your old life?" Adrian thought about it. "I regret what happened, the people who died because of bad intelligence. That'll never go away. But do I regret leaving? No. Because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have Emma. I wouldn't have this. And now? Now I'm trying to figure out how to be both. The person I used to be and the person I want to be. How to use what I'm good at without losing what matters." "You're doing it," Lena said. "Every day you're doing it." Adrian looked at her, really looked at her in the moonlight. "So are you. You're not the same person I met 2 months ago." "Good." That person was kind of a nightmare. She was scared. That's different. Lena turned to face him. "You changed that. You showed me what leadership actually looks like, how to see people instead of just using them." "I think you figured that out on your own." "Maybe, but you gave me permission to try." They were sitting close now, close enough that Adrian could see the freckles on her nose, the way her hair moved in the ocean breeze. "Adrian," she said quietly. "Yeah? I'm going to kiss you now, if that's okay." He nodded, not trusting his voice. She leaned in, and when their lips met, it felt like something clicking into place, something Adrian hadn't even known was missing. They pulled apart after a moment, both smiling. That was, Adrian started. Yeah. Emma's going to have opinions about this. Is that okay? I think so. She likes you. I like her too. Lena leaned her head on his shoulder. I like you. Even though I'm a mess? Especially because you're a mess. Perfect people are boring. They sat there on the beach until late, talking about everything and nothing, making plans that felt both terrifying and right. The trial happened in October. Adrian testified in a closed session, his identity protected just like the judge had promised. He walked the jury through the technical details, explained how the ghost account worked, how they'd tracked the data theft. Richard Castellano's lawyers tried to discredit him, tried to paint him as unreliable, but the evidence was too solid. The emails, the server logs, the timeline, it all held up. The jury came back with a guilty verdict in less than 4 hours. Castellano was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Helix Partners was fined $30 million and barred from operating in the tech sector for a decade. Lena's company was cleared of any wrongdoing, and Adrian's identity stayed sealed. 2 weeks after the trial ended, Adrian got a call from an unknown number. Is this Adrian Cole? A man's voice asked. Adrian's blood went cold. Who is this? Michael Preston. I was your supervisor at Sentinel Defense Solutions. Adrian almost hung up, almost ended the call and blocked the number and went back to pretending that part of his life didn't exist. But he didn't. What do you want? He asked. I wanted to tell you that you were right about the operation, about the intelligence being bad. We knew within a month, but the company buried it anyway. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm testifying against Sentinel. There's a congressional investigation into contractor misconduct, and I'm one of the witnesses. Preston paused. Your name came up in the Helix trial. I saw it in some sealed documents I wasn't supposed to see. And I realized you've been trying to make this right for 4 years. I walked away. You survived. That's more than a lot of people managed. Another pause. If you want to testify too, they'd listen. Your story matters. Adrian looked across the room at Emma, who was doing homework at the kitchen table, completely unaware that her father's past had just caught up with him again. I need to think about it, Adrian said. I understand. Here's my number. Call me if you change your mind. Preston hung up. Adrian sat there for a long time, staring at his phone. Then he walked over to Emma. Hey, Bug, can we talk? She looked up. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, but I need your opinion on something. He told her about the call, about the congressional investigation, about the chance to finally tell the truth about what happened 4 years ago. Emma listened without interrupting. When he finished, she said, Will it be dangerous? I don't think so. Not anymore. Will it help people? Maybe. If it stops other contractors from doing the same thing, then you should do it. It means going public, means people will know who I really am. Good. You're not a ghost, Dad. You're a person. And people should know what you did, what you tried to do. Adrian pulled her into a hug. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You're just finally listening. That night, Adrian called Michael Preston back. I'll testify, he said. You're sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. The congressional hearing was held in January in a room full of cameras and reporters and people who'd spent years getting away with things they shouldn't have. Adrian sat at a table with a microphone in front of him and told his story. He told them about the operation that went wrong, about the bad intelligence, about the people who died. He told them about trying to report it and being silenced. He told them about walking away and spending 4 years hiding from the thing he'd tried to fix. And he told them that he was done hiding. The testimony took 3 hours. When it was over, Adrian walked out of the hearing room to find Emma and Lena waiting in the hallway. Emma hugged him first. You did it. Yeah, Bug, I did it. Lena hugged him next. I'm proud of you. It's not over yet. I know, but you took the first step. That's what matters. Over the following months, the investigation expanded. More whistleblowers came forward. More evidence surfaced. Sentinel Defense Solutions was eventually stripped of its government contracts and shut down. 3 executives were charged with fraud and obstruction of justice, and Adrian's name was cleared. Not just cleared, vindicated. He got calls from former colleagues who apologized for not believing him. from journalists who wanted to tell his story, from advocacy groups who wanted him to speak about whistleblower protections. Adrian said no to most of it, but he said yes to a few things. He testified before Congress again, this time about the need for stronger oversight of defense contractors. He spoke at a conference about cybersecurity ethics. He wrote an op-ed about the cost of staying silent. And slowly, carefully, he started to build a life that wasn't about hiding. By spring, Adrian and Emma had moved into a new apartment. 2 bedrooms, a real kitchen, windows that actually opened. It was in a better neighborhood, closer to Emma's school, with a park 2 blocks away. Lena helped them move in. She and Emma had gotten close over the winter, bonding over cooking shows and a shared love of terrible puns. "This place is great," Lena said, looking around the empty living room. "It's home," Adrian said. "Or it will be. Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Where do you see yourself in 5 years?" Adrian thought about it. 6 months ago, he would have said something safe, something about stability and security and making sure Emma was okay. But now? "I see myself happy," he said, "working on problems that matter, being present for Emma, maybe letting someone else be part of that life too." Lena smiled. "Yeah?" "Yeah." She kissed him, and Emma made a face from across the room. "Gross," she said, but she was grinning. "You're going to have to get used to it," Lena said. "I know, doesn't mean I have to like it." Adrian laughed and pulled both of them into a hug. This was what he'd been fighting for all along. Not perfection, not safety, not invisibility, just this. A life built on truth instead of fear. On connection instead of isolation. On the belief that maybe, just maybe, he deserved to be seen. 3 years later, Adrian stood in the same classroom where he'd given that career day presentation, but this time he was there for Emma's middle school graduation. She walked across the stage to accept her diploma, and Adrian cheered louder than anyone else in the room. Lena was sitting next to him, her hand in his. After the ceremony, Emma ran up to them, diploma in hand. "I did it," she said. "You did it," Adrian agreed. "I'm so proud of you, Bug." "What's next?" Lena asked. Emma grinned. "High school, and then college, and then I'm going to change the world." "I believe you," Adrian said. They went out for dinner to celebrate. The 3 of them, plus Sarah and her wife, plus Marcus and his teenage son. A small group of people who'd somehow become family. Somewhere between the appetizers and dessert, Adrian looked around the table and realized something. He'd spent years thinking that the only way to keep Emma safe was to stay invisible, to hide from his past, from the mistakes he'd made, from the person he used to be. But the truth was simpler and harder than that. The best thing he could give her wasn't safety. It was honesty. It was the example of someone who screwed up, who tried to make it right, who kept trying even when it was terrifying. It was showing her that you could fail and still be worthy, that you could be broken and still be loved, that you could spend years running from yourself and still find your way home. Later that night, after everyone else had left, Adrian tucked Emma into bed in their apartment, the one they'd been living in for 3 years now, the one that finally felt like home. "Dad?" Emma said, half asleep. "Yeah, Bug." "I'm glad you stopped hiding." "Me too." "And I'm glad Lena's here." "Yeah?" "Yeah, she makes you happy." Adrian smiled. "She does." "Good. You deserve to be happy." "So do you." "I know. That's why I'm not worried anymore." She rolled over and was asleep in seconds. Adrian stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her breathe, feeling the weight of everything that had brought them here. Then he walked back to the living room where Lena was waiting on the couch. "She okay?" Lena asked. "She's perfect." Takes after her dad. "I'm not perfect. I know. That's why I love you." Adrian sat down next to her, and she leaned into him, and they stayed like that for a long time. Because perfect wasn't the point. The point was showing up, being honest, doing the work. The point was choosing truth over safety, connection over isolation, love over fear. The point was understanding that being seen, really seen, past and present and all, wasn't something to run from. It was something to fight for. And in the end, that made all the difference.